Most people think danger looks loud. They think it announces itself. Raised voices, fast movements, the kind of moment you can see coming and step away from. But that's not how it actually happens. Sometimes, it looks like a normal night. A quiet street, a closed diner, $16 left in your wallet, and a stranger who looks like she hasn't eaten in days. Evelyn didn't hesitate. She slid the last of her cash across the table and told the old woman to sit, to eat, to take her time. Because that's who she was. The kind of person who gives, especially when she has nothing left to give. What she didn't know was that somewhere in this city, a man with a reputation built on fear alone had just been told his mother didn't come home. And by morning, 6 black SUVs would be parked outside Evelyn's house. Engines running, doors unopened, waiting, because the woman she helped wasn't just hungry. She was protected, and the man coming to collect that debt doesn't believe in kindness. If you think that was just a small act of kindness, you're about to see how one decision can shake an entire empire. Subscribe now, because by morning, Evelyn's quiet life is about to be surrounded, literally. Evelyn had learned early that kindness was not something you scheduled. It didn't wait for convenience. It didn't check your balance. It didn't ask if you had enough left for yourself. It simply showed up and asked what kind of person you were going to be. That night, she was closing the diner alone. The neon sign in the window flickered between open and silence, like it couldn't decide whether the day was truly over. The last customer had left 20 minutes ago. Chairs were already flipped onto tables. The smell of fried oil and coffee clung to the air like something that refused to leave, even after the doors were locked. Evelyn stood behind the counter, counting what was left in the register. It wasn't much. Tips had been slow. The city had been quiet all week. And rent didn't care about quiet weeks. She stacked the bills carefully. Tens, fives, a few ones. Then she checked her wallet. $16. That was everything she had until Friday. She exhaled slowly, not in panic, but in calculation. She had done this before, stretching little into enough, turning not yet into still okay. That was survival. The bell above the diner door rang. Evelyn looked up. That alone was unusual. She had locked the door 10 minutes ago. For a second, she thought maybe she had forgotten. Maybe she was more tired than she realized. But then she saw her. The woman standing just inside the doorway was small, slight, wrapped in a coat that looked too thin for the night air. Her hair was silver, tied loosely at the back, strands falling forward like they had given up on being held in place. Her eyes moved slowly around the diner, not searching, not hurried, just taking it in. Evelyn noticed 2 things immediately. First, she was Korean. Second, she was hungry. Not the kind of hunger that comes from missing lunch. The kind that settles into the bones. Quiet, patient, used to being ignored. "Ma'am," Evelyn said gently, stepping out from behind the counter. "We're actually closed." The woman looked at her. Really looked. There was something steady in her gaze. Not desperate. Not pleading. Just present. "I know," the woman said softly, her accent light but unmistakable. "I won't take long." Evelyn hesitated. Rules were rules. Closing time was closing time. The owner had been clear about that. But rules had never been the thing that defined her. People were. She glanced at the empty diner, at the stacked chairs, at the quiet that had already settled in. Then back at the woman. "What would you like?" Evelyn asked. The woman smiled faintly, not wide, not relieved. Just enough to acknowledge something unspoken had passed between them. "Anything warm," she said. Evelyn nodded. She moved back behind the counter, flipped one chair down, and gestured for the woman to sit. The grill hissed back to life. Eggs, rice, the last portion of stew she had set aside for herself. She plated it carefully, not like leftovers, like it mattered, because it did. When she placed the plate in front of the woman, the older woman didn't eat immediately. She looked at the food for a moment, then at Evelyn. "You are kind," she said. Evelyn shrugged lightly. Just hungry people recognizing each other. That earned a quiet chuckle. The woman began to eat. Slowly, deliberately, like someone who understood the value of every bite. Evelyn leaned against the counter, arms folded, watching, not in a way that intruded, but in a way that made sure the moment stayed real. Outside, the street was still. No cars passing, no voices, just the low hum of the city settling into night. After a few minutes, the woman finished. Every last bit. She reached into her coat. Evelyn shook her head immediately. Don't worry about it. The woman paused. I insist. Evelyn stepped forward, gentler this time. I mean it. It's okay. A small silence passed between them. Then the woman slowly lowered her hand. But kindness, she said quietly, should not leave you empty. Evelyn smiled, but there was something tired behind it. It won't, she said. That wasn't entirely true. She walked back to the counter, picked up her wallet, and without letting herself think too long about it, she pulled out the $16. All of it. She walked back and placed it gently beside the empty plate. For tomorrow, she said. The woman stared at the money, then at Evelyn, and for the first time, something shifted in her expression. Not gratitude. Something deeper. Something measured. You do not know who I am, the woman said. Evelyn shook her head. I don't need to. Another silence. Longer this time. Heavier. Then the woman stood. She adjusted her coat. Looked at Evelyn one last time, like she was memorizing her. My name, she said, is Shinsho. Evelyn nodded. Evelyn. Shinsho inclined her head slightly. Then she turned and walked out into the night. The bell above the door rang once more, and the diner fell silent again. Evelyn stood there for a moment. Then she exhaled, turned off the grill, and went back to closing. She did not know that across the city, phones were already ringing, and a man named Busan had just been told his mother had been out alone. Busan did not like unanswered questions. In his world, questions were liabilities. They created space, and space was where mistakes lived. By the time the call reached him, it was already too late for it to be routine. She hasn't returned. That was all his security had said. No panic. No explanation. Just fact. Busan stood by the window of his private office, 30 floors above a city that pretended it didn't belong to him. Lights stretched endlessly below. Cars moved like veins carrying something vital through the dark. But his attention wasn't on the city. It was on the silence between the words. How long, he asked. 3 hours. That was enough. Too much, actually. His mother did not disappear for 3 hours. Not without a reason. Not without someone allowing it. Busan turned slowly. The room behind him was still. Controlled. Everything in its place. Nothing unnecessary. Just like the man standing in the center of it. Who was assigned to her tonight, he asked. Min-jae. And 2 external rotation guards. A pause. They're being held. Busan nodded once. Held meant alive. For now. Bring me the footage, he said. It was already waiting. Of course it was. In under 90 seconds, the wall screen came to life. Camera angles. Timestamps. Street feeds. Building entries. A timeline of absence. His mother leaving the residence. No escort. That alone was enough to make the room colder. She dismissed them. The security head said carefully. Said she wanted to walk. Busan didn't respond. He watched. Frame by frame. She moved slowly down the street. No rush. No fear. Just as she always did. Like the world had no authority over her. Because in many ways, it didn't. Except tonight. The footage shifted. Another camera. A corner. A street view. She stopped. Turned. Looked at something off-screen. Then, she walked out of frame. The feed ended. Busan's jaw tightened, but his expression didn't change. Next, he said. More footage. Traffic cams. Street-level security. Nothing. No incident. No struggle. No forced entry. Just absence. That was worse. Because violence left evidence. Control did not. Phone, he asked. Last signal pinged near the East District. Then it went dark. The East District. Busan's eyes shifted slightly. That part of the city didn't belong to him. not fully, which meant this was either deliberate or reckless. Neither option ended well. Pull every camera within a 5-block radius of that signal, he said. I want entry points, exits, anything that moves slower than it should have. It's already in process. Good. He stepped closer to the screen, zoomed in on the last clear image of her. His mother, Shincho, still, calm, untouched by the noise of the world around her. There were very few people in Busan's life he did not control. She was one of them, not because he couldn't, because she had never allowed it. And yet, she had walked out tonight without protection, without explanation, into a part of the city that did not answer to him. That was not a coincidence. That was a choice. And Busan did not believe in random choices. Find out where she went, he said quietly. Yes, sir. A beat. Then, the door opened. Another man stepped in. Younger. Faster. The kind of energy that moved before it was invited. We have something, he said. Busan didn't turn. Say it. A diner. Corner of Halstead and 9th. Small place. Closed at the time, but... He hesitated. Busan's eyes shifted. But, he asked. The man swallowed slightly. One of the external cameras caught her entering. Alone. The room went still. And? Busan asked. She stayed inside for 23 minutes. That was longer than expected. Much longer. What happened inside? Busan asked. We're pulling interior feeds now, but, another pause. There's no sign of distress. That word again. No distress. No struggle. No threat. Just time. Who owns the diner? Busan asked. Independent. No affiliations. No known connections to. I didn't ask for a profile. Busan cut in. I asked who owns it. The man nodded quickly. Registered under a local business account. But the employee on shift? She's the one who interacted with your mother. Now Busan turned. Fully. For 23 minutes, he said. Yes. And she left. Busan asked. Yes, sir. Alone. Yes. Silence. Then. Alive. The room held its breath. Yes. That answer landed differently. Not relief. Not yet. Something else. Something sharper. Bring me the footage, Busan said. It appeared seconds later. Grainy interior camera. Low angle. But clear enough. A woman behind the counter. Dark skin. Calm posture. Moving with the quiet efficiency of someone who had done the same thing 1,000 times. Evelyn. Busan watched as she served the food. Watched as his mother ate. Watched as nothing happened. No fear. No tension. No recognition. Just normalcy. Then, the moment that changed everything. Evelyn placed something on the table. Money. All of it. The footage didn't capture the exact amount, but it captured the gesture. Clear. Deliberate. Uncalculated. The room behind Busan shifted slightly. Not in movement. In understanding. Because this didn't fit any known pattern. People did not give to Shincho. People took. Fears. Avoided. But they did not give in. Busan stepped closer to the screen. Paused it. Zoomed in on Evelyn's face. Calm. Unaware. Unprotected. Who is she, he asked. The question was quiet. But it carried something heavier than anything he had said so far. We're running identification now, the man replied. Busan didn't look away from the screen. Run it faster, he said. A pause. Then softer. Almost to himself. She gave her everything. No one in the room responded. Because they all understood what that meant. Not the money. The decision. And decisions. Were the only currency Busan respected. He straightened. Turned. Prepare the cars, he said. How many? The security had asked. Busan didn't hesitate. All of them. That answer changed the room. Because Busan did not move loudly unless he intended to be seen. And when he intended to be seen, it was never just a visit. It was a message. And the girl? The man asked. Busan's eyes returned briefly to the frozen image of Evelyn on the screen. Then away. We're going to find out, he said. Evelyn woke up the way she always did. Quietly. No alarms blaring. No rush. Just the slow return of awareness. like her body understood that mornings didn't need to be fought. They just needed to be met. The light coming through her window was soft, pale, early. For a moment, everything felt normal. Her small apartment, the hum of the refrigerator, the faint sound of a bus passing 2 streets over. She lay there, staring at the ceiling, letting the day assemble itself in her mind. Work at 10. Stop by the store. Stretch $16 into something that could last until Friday. Her eyes opened fully. $16. The memory returned all at once. The diner, the old woman, the plate of food, the quiet voice that had said, "Kindness should not leave you empty." Evelyn sat up slowly. There was no regret. That was the strange part. She had given everything she had, and somehow, it didn't feel like loss. It felt settled, like something had landed exactly where it was supposed to. She swung her legs off the bed and stood, walked to the window, pulled the curtain aside, and froze. The street below her building was not quiet. It was occupied. 6 black SUVs, parked in a perfect line, engines running, windows tinted, not one of them out of place. Evelyn didn't move, didn't blink. Her brain tried to explain it away. Security convoy, wrong address, someone important visiting the building. But deep down, she knew this wasn't random. Nothing about that level of precision was random. She stepped back from the window slowly, heart steady, not racing. That was how she had learned to survive things she didn't understand. Panic made noise, and noise attracted attention. A knock came at the door. 3 times. Even. Measured. Not aggressive. Not hesitant. Just certain. Evelyn looked at the door, then at the window, then back again. She walked toward it, each step controlled, deliberate. She didn't check the peephole. She didn't need to. Whoever was on the other side already knew she was there. She opened the door. 2 men stood in the hallway. Dark suits. Clean lines. No wasted movement. They weren't trying to look intimidating. They didn't need to. "Miss Evelyn," one of them said. Not a question. A confirmation. "Yes," she replied. The man inclined his head slightly. "Our employer would like to speak with you." Evelyn leaned lightly against the doorframe. "About what?" she asked. A brief pause. Then, "About last night." There it was. Clear. Direct. No performance. Evelyn studied them. Their posture. Their tone. The space they left between words. This wasn't law enforcement. This wasn't random intimidation. This was organized, intentional, and very, very controlled. She nodded once. "Give me 5 minutes," she said. The men stepped back immediately. Of course. No pressure. No urgency. That was what made it heavier. They weren't asking, because they didn't need to. Evelyn closed the door, stood there for a second, then exhaled slowly. 5 minutes. That was enough time to decide who she was going to be. Not what was happening, not who they were, just who she was. She moved quickly, washed her face, changed into clean clothes. Nothing dramatic, nothing defensive. Just herself. She paused at the small table by the window. Her wallet sat there, empty. She picked it up, turned it over in her hands, then set it back down. No point carrying what wasn't there. She grabbed her keys instead, took one last look around the apartment. Not because she thought something would happen, but because moments like this had a way of dividing life into before and after. And she wanted to remember what before looked like. She opened the door. The 2 men were still there, waiting exactly where she left them. "Ready?" one asked. "Yes," she said. They walked her downstairs. The hallway felt longer than usual. The stairs are quieter. The outside air, heavier. The SUVs looked even larger up close. Polished. Identical. Imposing without trying. One of the rear doors opened. Evelyn stopped just short of it. "Who am I meeting?" she asked. The man looked at her. For a brief moment, something almost like respect passed through his expression. Then he answered. "Busan." The name landed. Not loudly, but with weight. Evelyn didn't react outwardly, but inside, something clicked. She had heard that name before. Not clearly, not directly, but enough to know. It wasn't a name people said casually. It was a name people avoided. or whispered, or pretended not to recognize it all. Evelyn nodded once. Then she stepped into the vehicle. The door closed behind her with a quiet, final sound. Inside, the world shifted. Leather seats. Dark interior. No unnecessary details. Just space. Controlled. The convoy began to move. Through the window, the city passed like nothing had changed. People walking. Shops opening. Life continues. But inside the SUV, everything had already changed. Evelyn sat still, hands resting in her lap, eyes forward. She didn't ask questions, because she understood something instinctively. The kind of man who sends 6 SUVs doesn't answer questions until he's ready. And whatever waited at the end of this drive, it was already decided. So Evelyn just stepped into a world she was never meant to see. And the man she's about to meet, he doesn't reward kindness. He tests it. Subscribe now and stay here. The convoy did not rush. That was the first thing Evelyn noticed. No speeding. No sudden turns. No urgency. Just control. Like the destination wasn't something they were chasing. It was something that was already waiting. The SUVs moved through the city with quiet authority. Traffic adjusted without being told to. Lanes opened. Space appeared. Evelyn watched it happen without reacting. Power, she realized, wasn't always loud. Sometimes, it simply existed, and everything else moved around it. They crossed into a part of the city she had never worked in. Cleaner streets. Taller buildings. Fewer people walking without purpose. Then the gates appeared. Black. Reinforced. Already open. The convoy didn't slow. They passed through without question. Inside. Silence. A private compound, hidden in the middle of a city that never stopped moving. Glass. Steel. Precision. Nothing out of place. The SUVs came to a stop in perfect alignment. Evelyn's door opened. Please, one of the men said. She stepped out. The air felt different here. Filtered. Still. Like even sound needed permission. She looked up. The building in front of her was massive, but not in a way that tried to impress. It didn't need to. It simply stood there, as if it had always belonged. Follow me, the man said. Evelyn walked. Through glass doors that opened before she reached them. Into a lobby that didn't echo, because it was designed not to. Everything absorbed sound. Footsteps softened. Voices lowered automatically. This was a place where noise didn't survive. They moved through a corridor. Then an elevator. No buttons pressed. It already knew where it was going. The doors closed. Silence. Evelyn stood still, her reflection faintly visible in the polished metal. Calm. Composed. Exactly the way she had been the night before. That part of her hadn't changed. The elevator stopped. Doors opened. Another corridor. Shorter this time. More private. At the end, a single door. No label. No number. Just presence. The man stopped. Turned to her. He's inside. Evelyn nodded. No hesitation. He opened the door and stepped aside. Evelyn walked in alone. The room was large, but it didn't feel empty. It felt focused. Floor-to-ceiling glass overlooked the city. The same city she had just traveled through, now reduced to something distant. Manageable. A desk sat near the center. Minimal. Clean. And behind it, him. Busan. He didn't stand. Didn't move to greet her. He simply looked at her. The kind of look that didn't rush. Didn't search. Just assessed. Evelyn stopped a few steps in. Met his gaze. Didn't speak. Silence stretched between them. Not awkward. Not uncertain. Measured. Then, you gave her everything you had. His voice was calm. Low. Not a question. A statement. Evelyn didn't look away. Yes, she said. No explanation. No defense. Just the truth. Busan studied her. There was no anger in his expression. No visible emotion at all. Which made it harder to read. Why, he asked. The word was simple, but it carried weight. Because in his world, nothing was done without reason. Evelyn considered the question. Not because she didn't have an answer, but because she wasn't going to give him the wrong one. She was hungry, she said. A pause. That's it. Evelyn tilted her head slightly. What else would there be? Another silence. Different this time. He leaned back slightly in his chair. Eyes still on her. You knew nothing about her, he said. No. You didn't ask who she was. No. You didn't expect anything in return. No. Each answer landed the same way. Clean. Uncomplicated. Busan's fingers rested lightly on the desk. Still. Controlled. But his attention had sharpened. Because this didn't match anything he understood. People always wanted something. Even when they pretended not to. Especially then. And if she had been dangerous, he asked. Evelyn's expression didn't change. Then I would have been careful, she said. You weren't. I was, she replied calmly. Just not afraid. That answer stayed in the air longer than the others. Because it wasn't defensive. It wasn't reactive. It was certain. Busan stood. Slowly. Not to intimidate. Just to change the distance between them. He walked around the desk. Each step measured. Until he stood a few feet away. Close enough to see clearly. Far enough to remain in control. You gave away your last money, he said. Yes. And this morning, he continued. You woke up with nothing. Evelyn held his gaze. Yes. A beat. Then. No, she corrected softly. Something shifted. Small. But real. Busan noticed it immediately. No, he asked. Evelyn shook her head slightly. I woke up the same person I was the night before, she said. That's not nothing. Silence. Heavy. Because that answer didn't belong in his world. And yet, it didn't sound naive. It sounded anchored. Busan looked at her for a long moment. Then, he turned slightly, gestured toward the window. Come here, he said. Evelyn hesitated only briefly, then walked to stand beside him. The city stretched out below them. Alive. Unaware. You see that, he said. Yes. That city runs on transactions, he continued. Everything is exchanged. Everything is calculated. Nothing moves without someone gaining something. Evelyn listened, didn't interrupt. And then, he said quietly, you appear. He turned his head slightly toward her. And do something that makes no sense. Evelyn looked at the city, then back at him. It made sense to me, she said. Another pause. Then, for the first time, something almost like a reaction crossed his face. Not quite a smile. Not quite disbelief. Something in between. Of course it did, he said. He stepped back. The moment shifted again. Back to control. Back to structure. You're probably wondering why you're here, he said. Evelyn met his eyes. I assumed you'd tell me. That answer landed differently. Busan nodded once. Then walked back to the desk. Picked up something. Turned. And placed it in front of her. An envelope. Thick. Sealed. Take it, he said. Evelyn didn't move. What is it, she asked. A correction, he replied. She looked at him. Then at the envelope. Then back at him. I didn't ask for anything, she said. I know. Then why give it? Busan's expression didn't change. Because I decide what things are worth, he said. There it was. Not arrogance. Not ego. Just truth, from his perspective. Evelyn looked at the envelope again. Then slowly. She shook her head. I'm not taking it. The room went still. Not tense. Not explosive. Just still. Because that was unexpected. Busan watched her carefully. You refuse, he asked. Yes. Why? Evelyn met his gaze fully. Because if I take it, she said, then what I did becomes something else. Silence. And what was it, he asked. Evelyn didn't hesitate. It was just kindness. That word hung between them. Simple. Unprotected. Unnegotiated. Busan looked at her. Longer this time. Deeper. As if trying to find the angle. The hidden motive. The transaction she wasn't admitting to. But there wasn't one. And that was the problem. No one told Busan no. Not twice. Not calmly. And definitely not without fear. Yet Evelyn stood in front of him, steady, composed, unchanged, after refusing something most people would have taken without even asking the amount. The envelope remained on the desk. Untouched. Unclaimed. Unwanted. That, more than anything, held his attention. Busan didn't move immediately. He simply watched her. measured the space between what she said and what she meant. There was no hesitation in her posture, no regret, no calculation, which meant one thing. She wasn't negotiating. She meant it. You think taking it would change what you did? He said finally. Yes. You think it would turn your decision into a transaction? Yes. His gaze sharpened slightly. And you don't want that? No. Simple. Direct. Uncomplicated. Busan exhaled slowly. Not frustration. Not anger. Something closer to adjustment. Because for the first time in a long time, his usual methods didn't apply. Money solved problems. Power corrected outcomes. Control ensured compliance. But none of those things worked on someone who wasn't trying to gain anything. And Evelyn wasn't. That made her unpredictable. And unpredictability, in his world, was dangerous. But this didn't feel dangerous. It felt different. Busan reached for the envelope. Not to push it toward her again, but to remove it. He placed it back on the desk behind him. Out of the conversation. Out of the equation. Evelyn noticed. Didn't comment. Didn't react. But something subtle shifted in the room. Respect. Not spoken, but present. You're aware of who I am, he said. Evelyn nodded slightly. Yes. And what does that mean? Yes. A pause. And you're still saying no. Evelyn met his gaze. I'm saying no to that, she said. Not to you. That answer landed carefully. Precisely. Busan studied her again. Because she had just done something very few people managed to do. She separated the man from the power. Most people responded to both at once. Fear didn't let them distinguish. But she had. Which meant she wasn't intimidated. But she wasn't careless either. She understood the situation. And chose her response anyway. That's rare, he said. Evelyn didn't smile. Didn't soften it. It's just honest, she replied. Silence again. But this one was different. Less like a standoff. More like recalibration. Busan walked past her. Toward the window. Hands loosely at his sides. The city stretched out below them again. Constant. Unchanging. Reliable in its patterns. Unlike the woman standing behind him. You know what usually happens in situations like this? He asked. Evelyn remained where she was. No. He turned slightly. People accept what's given, he said. They take more than they should. Then they adjust their behavior based on who gave it. Evelyn listened. They become careful, he continued. Strategic. Different. A beat. You haven't. Evelyn shook her head. No. Why? She thought for a moment. Then, because I didn't do anything wrong, she said. That answer hit differently. Because it wasn't about morality. It wasn't about defiance. It was about clarity. In her mind, there was nothing to correct, nothing to compensate, nothing to rebalance. She had seen a need. She had responded. End of story. Busan turned fully now, facing her again. And if I insisted, he asked. Evelyn held his gaze. Then it wouldn't be kindness anymore, she said. A pause. It would be something else. That word again. Something else. Undefined. But clearly less. Busan let the silence stretch. Then, unexpectedly, he nodded. Once. As if acknowledging a rule he hadn't considered before. Then we won't call it that, he said. Evelyn's eyes narrowed slightly. Not in suspicion. In curiosity. What do you mean? She asked. Busan stepped closer to the desk. Not to reclaim control, but to reposition the conversation. If I can't repay the act, he said, then I change the context. Evelyn watched him carefully. That sounds like the same thing, she said. It isn't, he replied. How? Another pause. This one deliberate. Because now, he was choosing his next move. Not reacting. Not correcting. Choosing. You said you woke up the same person, he said. Yes. And that matters to you. It does. He nodded. Good. He reached for something else on the desk. Not the envelope. A file. Thin. Minimal. He slid it across toward her. Evelyn didn't touch it immediately. What is this? She asked. An option, he said. She looked at him. What kind of option? The kind that doesn't change what you did, he replied. That got her attention. Slowly, she reached for the file. Opened it. Inside, a single page. Clean. Direct. No unnecessary details. Her eyes moved across the text, then stopped, then went back, reading it again, more carefully this time. Busan watched her reaction, not her face, her stillness, because that told him more than any expression. After a moment, she looked up. This is, she started, then stopped, because she wasn't sure what word to use. Impossible, he offered. Evelyn shook her head slowly. No. A beat. Unnecessary. That answer almost made him smile. Almost. Is it? He asked. Evelyn closed the file. Carefully. Placed it back on the desk. I have a job, she said. I have a life. And this would disrupt it, he said. Yes. Or improve it. Evelyn met his gaze. Those aren't always the same thing. That landed. Deep. Because in his world, improvement was always defined by scale. More money. More control. More access. But she was measuring something else entirely. And that made this complicated. Busan nodded slowly. Fair, he said. He didn't push it. Didn't insist. Didn't reframe it again. Because he understood something now. She wasn't rejecting the opportunity. She was protecting something. Something he didn't fully understand yet. But something he was starting to recognize. Integrity. Not as a concept. As a boundary. And for the first time in a long time, Busan found himself standing in front of a boundary he couldn't cross. Not because he lacked the power, but because crossing it would destroy the very thing he was trying to understand. Busan had built his life on certainty. Decisions made quickly. Outcomes controlled completely. Emotions irrelevant. That was how power stayed intact. That was how mistakes were avoided. That was how men like him survived. And yet, standing across from Evelyn, something unfamiliar had entered the room. Not chaos. Not a weakness. Something worse. Uncertainty. He didn't like it. Because uncertainty meant variables. And variables meant risk. But this didn't feel like risk in the way he understood it. It felt internal. Quiet. Persistent. He looked at the file still sitting on the desk between them. The offer he had crafted in under 10 minutes. An opportunity most people would have called life-changing. And she had refused it. Not dramatically. Not emotionally. Just clearly. Busan had seen fear. He had seen greed. He had seen people pretend to be principled until the right number appeared in front of them. Evelyn was none of those things. And that disrupted something he hadn't examined in years. Tell me something, he said. His voice was lower now. Less controlled. Not weaker. Just less distant. Evelyn didn't move. I'm listening. If the situation were reversed, he said, would you expect anything from me? Evelyn thought about it. Not long. But long enough to make the answer real. No, she said. Nothing. Nothing. He studied her. That's not how the world works. Evelyn's expression didn't change. It is for me. That answer landed harder than the others. Because it wasn't defensive. It wasn't idealistic. It was practiced. Lived. Proven. Busan turned slightly, pacing once, just once, before stopping again. That small movement said more than any reaction. He was thinking, not calculating. Thinking. When my mother was sick, he said suddenly, people came. Evelyn stayed quiet. Didn't interrupt. They brought things, he continued. Food. Flowers. Offers of help. A pause. I thought it was kindness. His tone shifted slightly. Not bitter. Just accurate. It wasn't. Evelyn watched him carefully. They wanted proximity, he said. Access. Favor. Position. Another pause. And when she died, they disappeared. The room felt different now. Less structured. More exposed. Busan didn't look at Evelyn as he spoke. He looked past her. Through the glass. At something that wasn't there anymore. I learned something very quickly, he said. Nothing is given without expectation. Silence. Then. You believe that, Evelyn said. Not a question. A statement. He turned to her. I've proven it, he replied. Evelyn shook her head slightly. No, she said. You've experienced it. That distinction. That small, precise correction. landed deeper than anything else she had said, because it challenged the foundation. Not aggressively, not emotionally, just logically. Busan looked at her, really looked at her, as if trying to understand how someone could hold a different conclusion, using the same type of evidence. And you think your version is different, he said. I know it is, she replied. Because of one act. Evelyn didn't hesitate. No. A beat. Because of many. That answer shifted something again. Because it meant this wasn't a one-time decision. This wasn't accidental. This was who she was. Consistently. Repeatedly. Without recognition. Without reward. Without an audience. Busan walked back toward the desk. Slower this time. Less controlled. He rested his hand lightly against the surface. You understand what I am, he said. Evelyn nodded. Yes. And what that means for people around me. Yes. And you're still standing here, he said. Yes. A pause. Why? That question, that one, was different. Because this time, he wasn't testing her. He was asking. Evelyn met his gaze. Steady. Unshaken. Because you haven't given me a reason not to, she said. The answer was simple, but it carried something deeper. She wasn't judging him based on reputation. She wasn't reacting to fear. She was responding to what was actually in front of her. Him. In this moment. That was new. No one did that with him. They reacted to the idea of him. The power. The stories. The consequences. But her. She was treating him like a person, not a position. And that was dangerous. Because it made something possible that he had avoided his entire life. Connection. Real connection. Uncontrolled. Unmanaged. Unpredictable. Busan straightened slightly. His expression returned to something more familiar. Composed. But not untouched. You're either very brave, he said, or very unaware. Evelyn tilted her head slightly. Or very certain, she said. That answer almost made him laugh. Almost. Instead, he nodded. Once. Maybe, he said. Silence settled again. But it wasn't heavy this time. It was balanced. Two people. Neither is trying to dominate the space. Neither trying to escape it. Just existing in it. Busan looked at the envelope. Then at the file. Then back at Evelyn. Two things he had offered. Two things she had refused. And yet, she hadn't rejected him. That distinction mattered. More than he expected. You've put me in an unusual position, he said. Evelyn didn't react. That wasn't my intention. I know. A pause. But it's the result. He walked around the desk again. Stopped in front of her. Not imposing. Not threatening. Just present. I don't know what to do with you, he said. Evelyn held his gaze. You don't have to do anything, she replied. Another pause. Then, something shifted. Small, but undeniable. Busan nodded slowly. As it turns out, he said, that might be the problem. Because for the first time, he wasn't trying to control the outcome. And he didn't know what happened next when you didn't. As we go into this story, Busan faced enemies, betrayal, and power struggles. But never this. A woman he can't control. And doesn't want to. Subscribe to our channel and stay here. For the first time in years. Busan did not end the conversation. He didn't dismiss her. Didn't redirect the outcome. Didn't decide what happened next. He simply stood there. And that alone changed the balance in the room. Evelyn noticed. Not because it was obvious, but because it was different. You're waiting, she said. Busan looked at her. Yes. For what? A pause. Then, for something I don't usually allow, he said. Evelyn studied him. And what's that? Another pause. This one quieter. Time. The words sat between them. Unfamiliar in his world. Everything he did was immediate. Decisive. Final. But this wasn't something he could decide in seconds. And that unsettled him more than he expected. Evelyn nodded slowly. That's not a bad thing, she said. For you, he replied. For you too, she corrected. He didn't answer immediately, because part of him understood she was right, and another part didn't know what that meant yet. Evelyn glanced toward the door, then back at him. I should go, she said, not as a question, as a choice. Busan felt the shift instantly. Most people stayed longer than they were supposed to, trying to gain something, waiting for more. But her, she was leaving at the exact moment she decided to. No hesitation, no dependency. That mattered. You're not going to ask anything, he said. Evelyn raised an eyebrow slightly. Like what? Anything, he replied. Money, protection, opportunity. Evelyn shook her head. I already told you, she said. I didn't do it for that. I know, he said. Then why would I ask now? That answer closed the door on something. Something he was used to leaving open. Leverage. She had none, and she didn't want any. Busan nodded once. Fair. Evelyn turned slightly toward the exit, then paused. Not long. Just enough to say one more thing. You asked me why I stayed, she said. He looked at her. Yes. She held his gaze. The real question is why you didn't send me away. That landed. Clean. Direct. Unavoidable. Because she was right. He could have ended this at any moment. He didn't. Evelyn gave a small nod. Not respectful. Not submissive. Just acknowledgement. Then she walked toward the door. No rush. No hesitation. The same way she had walked away that night. After opening the wrong door. The door opened before she reached it. She stepped through. And just like that, she was gone. The room felt different. Quieter. Not because of the space, but because of the absence. Busan stood still for a moment, looking at the place she had just been. Then, slowly, he exhaled. Not relief. Not frustration. Something else. Recognition. He walked back to the desk, looked at the envelope, then the file, both untouched. For the first time in a long time, his usual tools had failed. And yet, he didn't feel like he had lost. He felt like something had started, and that was unfamiliar. Because Busan didn't begin things. He ended them. But this wasn't over. Not even close. 3 days passed. No calls. No messages. No black SUVs. Evelyn went back to her routine. Work. Home. Quiet evenings that asked nothing from her. And yet, something lingered. Not fear. Not expectation. Just awareness. Because somewhere in the city, a man who controlled everything had chosen not to control this. That meant something. She just didn't know what yet. Sunday morning came. The same way it always did. Soft. Predictable. Familiar. Evelyn sat by the window of her usual tea spot. A small place tucked into a quiet street where no one asked questions and no one stayed too long. It was her space. Her rhythm. Her world. She had a cup of tea in front of her, and the blue folder beside it. Open. For the first time since that day, she wasn't searching anymore. She already had the answers. Now, she was trying to understand what to do with them. The bell above the door rang. She didn't look up immediately. People came in all the time. It meant nothing. Until the room shifted. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just subtly. Conversations softened. Movement slowed. Attention tilted. Evelyn looked up. And there he was. Busan. Standing in the doorway. Not in a suit. Not surrounded. No presence of power. Except the one he carried naturally. For a moment, neither of them moved. Because this was different. He hadn't called. Hadn't arranged it. Hadn't controlled it. He had stepped into her world. Without warning. Evelyn closed the folder slowly. Set it aside. Watched as he walked toward her table. Each step is deliberate. Not dominant. Not cautious. Just intentional. When he reached her, he didn't sit. Not yet. You come here often, he said. It wasn't a question. Evelyn raised an eyebrow slightly. You've been watching? No, he said. A pause. Just paying attention. That answer surprised her. Because it was honest. And because it meant something else. He hadn't needed surveillance. He had remembered. Evelyn gestured to the empty seat across from her. You going to stand there all day? She said. A small shift. Almost a smile. Busan sat. No performance. No control. Just presence. The server approached. Hesitated. Then looked at Evelyn. What can I get him? She asked quietly. Evelyn didn't look at Busan. Tea, she said. Same as mine. The server nodded and left. Busan glanced at the cup in front of her. Then back at her. You're comfortable here, he said. Yes. And you brought me into it. Evelyn met his gaze. You walked in, she corrected. Another pause. Then, something unexpected. Busan leaned back slightly. Not guarded. Not strategic. Relaxed. I've been thinking, he said. That's new, she replied. That time. He did smile. Brief. But real. About you, he said. Evelyn didn't react outwardly. But she noticed the shift in tone. Not curiosity. Not investigation. Something more deliberate. And, she asked. Busan looked at her. Direct. Unfiltered. I don't want this to be the last time we talk. Silence. Not awkward. Not tense. Just honest. Evelyn studied him for a moment. Weigh the words. Not what they sounded like. What they meant. Then, she picked up her tea. Took a small sip. Set it down. That depends, she said. On what, he asked. Evelyn leaned forward slightly. Calm. Steady. Clear. On whether you're here as Paisan, she said. Or as the man who didn't force me to take that envelope. That question. That line. Split everything in two. Power. Or person. Control. Or choice. Paisan didn't answer immediately. Because for the first time, he had to decide which one he was going to be. Paisan entered her world without power. Now he has to decide who he really is. And the answer? Changes everything. Thanks for staying, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button.